She walked into that meeting saying if. She walked out saying when. And in the space of one conversation, the entire energy future of this country shifted direction. If you're not already following this story daily, hit subscribe right now, because what happened in Ottawa on Friday is moving fast, and you need to be ahead of it. Here's what actually occurred. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith flew to Ottawa and sat down with Prime Minister Mark Carney. Before the meeting, she told reporters she hoped the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding between Alberta and the federal government, could be completed in the next number of days. That's how uncertain things were walking in. Then, hours later, standing outside, she said this. This morning I said if a deal gets signed, and afterwards I said when a deal gets signed. One meeting, one word, changed. Now let's be precise about what that MOU actually is, because this is where most people get lost, and I don't want you to be one of them. Last November, Carney and Smith signed an agreement that laid out a roadmap, not a pipeline itself, but the conditions under which a new bitumen pipeline from Alberta to BC's northern coast could be approved. Think of it as the blueprint for the blueprint. It requires Alberta to hit specific methane reduction targets, reach agreement on carbon pricing, complete a carbon capture MOU with the Oil Sands Alliance, and pass regulatory reforms. 2 of those 4 pieces are done. Carbon pricing and the Oil Sands Alliance agreement are the remaining walls to break through. Stay with this, because what comes next is where the real stakes reveal themselves. This story isn't just about a pipeline. It is about whether Canada can hold itself together. Right now, 301,620 Albertans have signed a petition calling for a referendum on separation from Canada, nearly double the threshold needed to trigger a vote. A court challenge by First Nations groups has temporarily blocked signature verification, and a judge's ruling is expected any day. Carney knows this. Smith knows this. The pipeline deal isn't energy policy in isolation. It is the federal government's most visible argument to Albertans that staying in Canada is worth it. Every day this drags on, that argument gets harder to make. And share this video right now with someone in Alberta who thinks Ottawa has already written this off, because what's actually happening is more complicated than that, and they deserve to know. Here's what's moving behind the scenes. Shortly after Smith and Carney's meeting, the federal government quietly released 2 discussion papers proposing to shift authority over new interprovincial pipeline approvals from the Impact Assessment Agency to the Canada Energy Regulator. That is a significant structural change, one that removes a major bottleneck from the regulatory process that has killed pipelines before. The oil sector responded with cautious optimism. Environmental groups responded with alarm. Former Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault resigned from cabinet over the original MOU last November. That tells you exactly how real this pivot is. Alberta isn't waiting passively. Smith confirmed that her government is evaluating 5 potential pipeline routes for its submission to the Major Projects Office. Major oil companies have been directly advising on those routes. The July 1st deadline to submit that application is now the real line in the sand. Meanwhile, Carney has called a new pipeline more probable than possible, a phrase that would have been unimaginable from any Liberal leader 2 years ago. Part of that shift comes from global energy market pressure, accelerated by instability in the Middle East and the pressure of CUSMA trade renegotiations looming this summer, with Canada's economic leverage directly tied to how much of its own energy it controls. Here is what makes this genuinely complicated, though, and I won't skip past it. British Columbia Premier David Eby has said a new pipeline to the northern coast isn't realistic. The Union of BC Indian Chiefs has objected loudly, stating the MOU was signed without consultation with coastal First Nations. Any pipeline route through BC will face legal challenges that could take years. And Trans Mountain, the last pipeline Canada actually built, is already running at full capacity, which means Alberta's oil still has nowhere new to go. The 5 routes Smith is evaluating each carry their own geographic, legal, and political risk profiles. None of them are easy. All of them matter. So what is confirmed? Smith left Ottawa more confident than she arrived. 2 of 4 MOU conditions are complete. Federal regulatory reform papers are on the table. Oil companies are engaged. The application deadline is July 1. What is not confirmed? A carbon pricing agreement, the Oil Sands Alliance MOU, a chosen pipeline route, BC's cooperation, and the outcome of a court case that could either slow down or completely reshape Alberta's political calculus before any shovel breaks ground. Here is the bottom line. Canada has spent decades canceling pipelines for reasons that always seemed logical in the moment. What's different right now is the pressure coming from every direction simultaneously. A separation movement with 300,000 signatures, a Kuzma trade clock ticking toward summer, and a prime minister who used the word when first. The question is no longer whether Ottawa and Alberta want a deal. It's whether every other force in play will let them get there. If you want this analysis every single day, not weekly, every day, as this story develops, subscribe below and hit the bell. This is the kind of deal that looks like a headline on Friday and becomes history by fall. Don't miss the next move. And if this gave you context you didn't have before today, share it with one person who needs it. You won't regret being the one who saw this coming.